Right, so your doctors on the ground have said at least 2 clinics, MSF clinics, or at least where doctors have been working, have been struck. Is the feeling there that they were targets or were they collateral?
Listen, Laura, it's very hard to be able to voice an opinion on that. All that we can really say is that from what we are witnessing, the bombing appears to be indiscriminate. There is no safe space. There is no safe passage in Gaza right now. And consequently, the request by the Israeli forces to evacuate northern Gaza is quite ludicrous. Moving 1 million people from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza, whilst they continue to bomb the south of Gaza, is not a choice that people can make. The lack of fuel, water, food, other facilities at the hospitals where we work, and now the absence of medical personnel means that the patients that are left behind really face a death sentence. There is no hope for them whilst the borders remain closed, whilst medical supplies are not allowed in, whilst fuel to generate electricity is also blockaded from Gaza. So we're calling for those borders to open and those supplies to come in immediately as a matter of life-saving urgency.
Yeah, it certainly is necessary. Hopefully this happens soon, but there has been no sign that the Rafah crossing is going to open anytime soon. If I could remain on the Al-Ahli hospital, Simon, any reports back from your doctors on the ground as to how many casualties there might have been there? I mean, there are varying reports from 300 to 800, but if you could give us any insight there, I think it'd be helpful.
I'm sorry, we have the same information. Yeah. It's really hard to be in contact to communicate with our medical personnel. So until there's some more reliable data through, the figure that we're also quoting is that around 500 casualties. And as I've mentioned before, thousands of Gazans are looking to hospitals as a place of safety where they can seek medical treatment and perhaps escape the indiscriminate bombing. But as we've seen throughout the week, medical facilities have been attacked, and we remind the world that there's an obligation in war to protect medical facilities, and unfortunately both sides don't seem to be respecting that at the moment.
No, and you know, we always have anecdotal reports of Hamas using hospitals as well for a safe haven for themselves. I mean, can you say anything about that?
No, we can't. Again, the people that we treat at hospitals are patients. We understand that 1 million civilians in the north of Gaza are in an extremely dire situation. To be able to comment on military presence or operations is beyond our information. But what we can say is that huge unmet medical needs are there, and it's really, as I said before, a death sentence for the people remaining unless the bombing stops, unless the supplies are allowed to come in literally today.
So what is required? And on what scale? I mean, the photos that we see out of Gaza, and it's really hard for journalists to get in there at the moment, so we are relying on a few brave independent journalists to get that information out. But it does look like very rudimentary treatment. So I imagine you need things like bandages, but more sophisticated medical equipment as well.
Exactly. You've probably heard that there's been a blockade on medical supplies imposed now for more than a week. We're seeing doctors operating on patients without painkillers. We're seeing a lack of medical supplies being available to enable burns and other trauma injuries to be treated. So what we need right now is for that border to be opened, a safe passage for humanitarian supplies, and the cessation of the indiscriminate bombing from the IDF in the north of Gaza.
And is the Australian government helping you to make these representations?
No, MSF is calling on behalf of our doctors and our patients, but we're also in touch with other humanitarian organisations that are making many of the same points. I think the UN has shared information on some of the bombing affecting people sheltering in schools in Gaza, and indeed they are calling on world leaders, as are we, to apply pressure to both sides to allow for a cessation of hostilities, to allow for safe passage with right of return for Gazans to be able to escape this blockade.
Simon Eccleshall, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.